Welcome back to the 8th Congressional District debate with incumbent Mike Gallagher and State Representative Amanda Stuck.
This round of questioning will be about Wisconsin and national topics. First question will be for State Representative Amanda Stuck. And the question is, President Trump obviously seeking a second term, Democrat, former Vice President Joe Biden looking to unseat him. How do you best mirror the top of your party's ticket, and how do you most differ from the top of your party's ticket? Representative Stuck.
Well, this is an interesting question. I would say in a lot of ways I am similar to Joe Biden in the fact that I consider myself much more moderate, that I consider myself somebody who really tries to listen to both sides of the issue and not just come in thinking I know it all without thinking I can learn something from the other side. I would also say, truly, I don't really care about my party's ticket or the top of my ticket. I care about the people here in Northeast Wisconsin who are working 3 jobs and just trying to get ahead. So for me, that's what it's about. Whoever is at the top of the ticket, whoever wins, whoever I serve with, that's what it's about. It's not really about who my party leadership is or what they're like. To me, it's just about doing the right thing for the people here in Northeast Wisconsin.
Congressman, same question.
Well, I think the area where I've worked the closest with the Trump administration has definitely been on foreign policy and on China policy in particular. And I would say, regardless of how you feel about the president, what has happened in the last 4 years has been the biggest shift in U.S. foreign policy since the end of the Cold War. And there is no question that China is our top competitor, and we all have to work together to confront what will be a generational challenge. I think the biggest difference is, obviously, temperamentally, Trump and I are extremely different, and I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter. But I think on a policy issue, the area where I've had the biggest disagreements with the administration and, honestly, Republican Party leadership in Congress has been on the nature of executive power and authority. My view is that Congress, in the last 3 decades, has systematically surrendered most of its power to the executive branch. And the reason we have these knockdown, drag-out, all-consuming presidential fights is because the presidency has increased in importance. And if you look at the Constitution, if you look at the Federalist Papers, the Article I branch, the legislative branch, is supposed to be the dominant branch. And I think we have to be in the business of reclaiming that authority, which I have consistently done, whether it comes to tariff issues, introducing bipartisan legislation to reclaim authority, introducing bipartisan legislation to make sure that Congress has a say in keeping our presence in NATO, keeping a troop presence on the Korean Peninsula, or even going to the White House with Democratic colleagues of mine to make the case that the president should support our bipartisan term limits bill, which would have capped our time in Congress at 12 years, which there is no way that I'm ever going to stay longer than that in Congress. And that was a remarkable experience because I've been at the White House where I've been arguing the opposite side of an issue. On this issue, my Democratic colleagues were actually encouraging the president to support our term limits bill. You have to be willing to work with people of all different sides of the ideological spectrum in order to get things done for Northeast Wisconsin.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I would just like to point out about the term limits bill again. You said you wouldn't stay in Congress longer than 12 years. Can you make a commitment that this isn't a stepping stone for you and you're not looking to run for another office?
Yeah, I'm not looking beyond the next week, November 3rd. I'm actually more concerned about building a young family here in Northeast Wisconsin than anything politically. And I think having a kid, as you know, your mother, I think simplifies your worldview, right? And has a way of refocusing you on the things that are important. And truly, I know politics is important, but it's not as important as family. It's not as important as friendships that, quite frankly, should transcend political parties. So this is not a stepping stone. I view this as service. 4 years ago when I first ran, I'd never run for anything before. I vowed to treat this like a deployment, and that's what I will continue to do for 2 more years if you elect me.
You said you're not thinking beyond November 3rd, so is that definitively saying you will not seek other political office?
I have no clue what I'm going to be doing on November 4th. I may lose. I may be out of a job. I may be applying for an internship at the TV station here. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Thank you, Congressman. Now, with the uniqueness of this year's elections, to say the least, are you comfortable with mail-in voting? Representative Stuck, you'll go first.
Yes, I absolutely believe that we should be comfortable with our mail-in ballots, and everybody should be using them that can, especially during a pandemic. The more people that vote by mail, the better. I do think people need to get their ballots in as soon as possible, especially at this point. You really should be dropping them off directly at your city or village hall or in those ballot drop boxes that many communities have to make sure it gets there in time. But you should absolutely feel like your ballot is safe using a mail-in ballot. I have sat with clerks as they've counted ballots. I know that they have a very tedious, secure process to make sure that every vote is counted, that every ballot is safe. So people should absolutely feel that they should vote by mail and feel safe doing that. We do need to have a larger discussion about election security and about at the federal level how we do need to invest dollars in making sure that our equipment is upgraded and safe in every single community. But your mail-in ballots are safe right now.
Congressman Gallagher, your thoughts?
I think in Wisconsin, we're lucky to have a very common sense system, and we have dedicated professionals at village clerk's office all across the state doing exceptional work. So I'm confident in the three-tiered system we have in Wisconsin. You can vote absentee by mail for whatever reason. That's my wife's preferred method. You can vote in person early, which is what I like to do because I like that feeling of voting in person, but I like to avoid the lines on Election Day. I just did it in Alloway the other day. And then you always have to have the option of voting in person on Election Day. I think going forward, what makes common sense to me is that we continue to maintain that simple system in Wisconsin. We continue to maintain its integrity, but we should avoid some things that I think would undermine the integrity of our election. In particular, universal vote by mail, I think, would be a bad system. I think we've seen in New York the consequences of moving to that. We still have lawsuits pending. I also think ballot harvesting opens a Pandora's box of bad behavior in an election right now. So I think we should absolutely avoid that. I just want to highlight quickly, actually the person I've worked most closely with in Congress in the last 2 years is not a Republican, is not a Democrat. It's actually an independent senator from Maine named Angus King. And we co-chaired something called the Cyberspace Solarium Commission. We were tasked with taking a comprehensive look at U.S. cyber policy. And one thing we really focused on is election security because it was such a big problem in 2016. And among our many recommendations, one thing we highlighted was the need to pass the Honest Ads Act, a bipartisan bill, a Democrat bill that I've co-sponsored, so that foreign countries can't advertise online and mess in our elections. 2, we always need to maintain an auditable paper trail, even for fancy electronic systems. And finally, we need to invest in civic education and digital literacy so our kids understand disinformation online.
I'd like to respond.
Yes, go ahead.
You may.
Okay. So again, here's another opportunity. Watch what Congressman Gallagher does, not what he says, because he talks about how he wants that transparency, wants to address foreign ads, have honest ads, a paper trail. That was all in H.R. 1, which he voted against. So again, he's going to sit here and say he supports these things, but he actually voted against it in H.R. 1.
I'd like a rebuttal. H.R. 1, and that means that was Nancy Pelosi's first bill she brought to the floor in this Congress, was not a serious effort at political reform because it had some good stuff in there, but it also had crazy things like requiring or allowing convicted felons to vote, mandating that in states, and worst of all, a 6-to-1 federal dollar match for private dollar donations. So that means if she gives $1 to Bernie Sanders, 6 of your tax dollars match that donation. That's unconstitutional and a recipe for chaos.
We move on to our next question. Representative Stuck, you have been outspoken about a mask mandate and general safety during this pandemic. Would you support a nationwide mask mandate until we at least have a vaccine or the COVID-19 pandemic is finally under control?
I do think that we have to get people masked. It is shown that it is one of the most effective ways to address this, along with hand washing. So I think that there's a very good case to be made for a national mandate. You know, I can tell you, even as a teacher in the schools, we have teachers and students out left and right because of this, people who are exposed or testing positive. And the number one thing the school has to do in order to try and keep teachers in the classroom and students in the classroom is use a mask. It is something that we have to do. I don't like wearing one either, but I know that I have to do it to protect myself and those around me. It is the human thing to be doing right now to protect as many people as possible.
Congressman Gallagher, your thoughts on the mask mandate?
Well, I think a federal mask mandate would be both unconstitutional and unenforceable, and even Joe Biden has recently admitted as much. Here at the state level, obviously, we've had a controversy over the nature of the governor's executive authority. For the life of me, I don't know why, at the beginning of this crisis, the governor didn't simply invite the legislative leaders over to the massive mansion that he has on Lake Mendota that we all subsidize, and over the course of a few beers, figure out what is a bottom-up strategy? What is a hybrid strategy where maybe we go county by county, right? If you're in a county like Brown County where we're having a spike right now, unquestionably, we're going to need more restrictive guidance and criteria, and we're going to need buy-in from local law enforcement. We can't have local law enforcement simply choose not to enforce a mandate. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything. But in areas in other counties where we have more cows than people, perhaps we don't need to have a mask mandate in place. I've said, and actually at the end of March, I wrote an op-ed, not seeing a plan coming from the governor's office, just laying out what I thought were 5 common sense criteria for a bottom-up plan to guide Wisconsin going forward. And the real substance of it was that county by county, bottom-up approach, because again, I think no one-size-fits-all strategy or policy can be designed in Madison, and certainly it can't be designed in Washington, D.C. We have 50 states, all with different population sizes and different communities that need different things. We have to have a little humility going forward. The final thing I'd like to mention is that we've had some incredible people step up to the plate in Northeast Wisconsin to respond to the need for masks. And in particular, I want to highlight the work of the Wisconsin Face Mask Warriors right around the street here, who took donated materials from all over the state and made over 140,000 cloth masks that they sent all over to the state of Wisconsin. That's absolutely incredible. Shout out to the Wisconsin Face Mask Warriors.
Representative Stuck, do you wish rebuttal?
Yes. I just want to say a few things. So first of all, I was just at the dentist today before I came here, and I was hearing even there about how they're constantly worried about if they're going to have enough masks and what will happen if they run out of masks that day. So the truth is we still have an issue, and we still have nurses reusing their masks multiple times. And again, we have Mike Gallagher out there running around at events, mass events, unmasked, touching people, showing with his own behavior exactly what we shouldn't be doing, dishonoring the people who have died right here in our community.
I'd like to respond.
Go ahead, sir.
I think, well, since the start of this crisis, I've been encouraging people to wear masks. I've done multiple public service announcements to that effect. I'm one of the most outspoken leaders in the state of Wisconsin on mask wearing. I think like a lot of Wisconsinites, we can all do better, myself included. And I think we find ourselves in awkward social situations every single day. Something as simple as not shaking someone's hand when they reach for it, that can create an awkward situation. And so we all need to do our part to wear masks. And that's why I was proud to say we secured a donation of 100,000 masks from the government of Taiwan.
We thank you both, and that is the end of our round 2 questions. Coming up next, our final round of questions. These will be submitted by our Local 5 viewers.
We'll be back in 2 minutes. Please stay with us.